What is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man, and I have disappeared for about a month, and I'm back now, and I'm not gonna give any excuses. Let's go ahead and get into the story. This is either What If Deku Had a Shadow Wolf Part 8 or 9, I forget. Let's go. Koa-san freaks out and she opens a portal right under Uraraka. She falls through. Jigoku says, "Why did you do that?" Koa-san says, "I don't know, I just freaked out." Oh no, guys, this is bad. This is really bad. This is so bad. Tomura says, "Who was that?" Koa-san says, "That was Uraraka, one of my classmates, Tomura." Tomura says, "Koa-san, it's okay, just breathe. The police and pro heroes, they're coming. We gotta leave." "But what about Soul? She's out there in the ocean." "I don't know. She probably drowned with the rest of the 8 bullets. Come on. We need to leave now." They all leave before anyone else spots them. While in the car, Koa-san thinks of what to say or what to do when she talks to Uraraka. Jigoku says, "It's okay, Koa-san. We'll figure something out. Okay? Just slow down time in the abyss so it only feels like a few short moments in there." "Okay." While behind the wheel, Tomura was on the phone with Korigiri and informs him that they managed to capture Overhaul. After driving for a while, they arrive at the bunker. Security, along with Alpha One, was ready, and he told Koe-san to drop him out of the abyss. She does this, and he falls to the ground, still unconscious, with bruises and bleeding from his missing limb. They quickly detain him, and they got him a medic so that he doesn't die. All for One says that his people will take it from here. He was about to leave until Koe-san stops him to tell him about Uraraka. "Wait, All for One, What?" She jumps out of fright. Koe-san's heart was aching because he yelled at her when she was just trying to ask for help. She just turns around, falls to her knees, and All for One just walks off, leaving her in tears. Jigoku and Tomura comfort her, but she couldn't stop crying. Because even with all the good things that have happened in her life because of All for One, she can still remember the times Hasashi did those things to her and hurt her physically and emotionally. A few hours pass, and the three were sent home after being healed. Koe-san was in her bedroom, weeping in her pillow. Hati says, "Child, you're okay. You don't have to be sad." Koe-san says, "I can't help it. It's just the memories. They hurt my head so much." A knock at the door can be heard. She wipes her tears away. "Come in." Enters Tomura. "Hey, you okay?" "Well, kinda. I've been crying for the past few hours that I forgot about Ochako." "And how is she doing in there?" "She's confused and afraid and wants to get out." "Ah, damn it, why did I do that?" "Well, I mean, there was so much going on. You really didn't have much time to think. And, we did just take down the second most dangerous man in Japan. Not to mention, we also tapped into that new power. And I gotta say, we were pretty powerful when like that. And I've never felt so alive." Koe-san then leans on Tomura's shoulder and says, What should I do about Uraraka?" "I don't know, Koe-san. Out of the three of us, you're the one with the better people skills. And you have the highest charisma. If anyone knows what to do, it's you. You just need more time to think. Sleep, even." "Yeah, I guess you're right. Hey, can you do something for me? Anything. Can you recite to me more poems?" I want to hear another one. Sure. Tomura would tell Koe-san poem after poem until she falls asleep. When she did, Tomura found himself unable to move because Koe-san was snuggling him close. He didn't want to wake her up, so he slept with her in her bed that night. Jigoku watches through the doorway and felt a bit empty, but eventually left it. A few hours later, Koe-san wakes up. It was 3 a.m. She gets out of bed, and she goes to the bathroom and splatters water on her face as she takes a deep breath, opens a portal to the abyss, and enters. When she did, she was met with Uraraka ushering towards her, calling her name. Koe-san, what is this place? It's only been like a few short minutes or so. We need to get out of here. Uraraka, listen. I need to tell you something. Koe-san would tell Uraraka the truth, but not entirely the truth. So, you see, we are the Phantom Menaces, but we only target people who are gang leaders that ruin the streets. We don't kill them, we just imprison them. And the guy you saw us capture, his name was Kai Shizaki. And he is a very dangerous man. And you won't believe the things that he has done. Including this little girl called Eri. She's 5 years old. And Kai took her tongue to silence her. Jigoku rescued her and we decided to go after him. And it would appear that he had an alliance with one of the gods that put me in the Akoma. Which explains all the light that you saw earlier. Uraraka was actually believing Koe-san's words because most of it was the truth. She also went ahead and told her that the world that they are in right now, this is like off script, but like she actually told her that the world that they are in right now is another ability that she has. Alright, back on the script. Koe-san says, Uraraka, I'm sorry I put you in here. I just freaked out, and I'm gonna make it up to you, and I'll start by letting you out of here, okay? Okay. They get up and leave the abyss. Uraraka notices that it's dark outside. Oh yeah, time works differently when you're in there. A few hours have passed. You know, if you want to spend the night, you're more than welcome to, but you should probably call your parents before they get worried. She does call her parents, and she informs them, this is off script, but like, she does call her parents and informs them that she will be spending the night with Koe-san. She does this, and Koe-san entertains her, showing her around the house. Wow, this place is like a mansion, it's huge. I didn't know you come from a wealthy family, Koe-san. Man, I really wish I had money like this. Just enough to support my parents. You know, they've done a lot for me, and I just really want to pay them back. Koe-san thinks about the time when she was with her father. And there was actually one time when she was 3, when Hasashi actually apologized to her about everything. And he would say that it was like something was controlling him. A few hours passed. Uraraka and Koe-san have learned a lot about each other and have grown a strong friendship bond. Soon, everyone else wakes up to Uraraka at the dining table. Koe-san had made everyone breakfast. Morning, you guys. Jigoku and Tomura say good morning, trying their best not to make things feel awkward. Uraraka would tell them that Koe-san explained everything and promises to keep their secret a secret and not tell anyone. Jigoku smiles and says, "Thank you, Uraraka. We really do appreciate it." Uraraka introduces herself to Tomura because she never met him before, and things were a bit awkward between them, but Tomura managed to get through it. After breakfast, Koe-san, Jigoku, and Uraraka were on their way to school. chatting it up as friends do. But back at the bunker, Overhaul had awakened. He found himself bound to a medical bed. He realizes that his left arm was gone, and he was in excruciating pain because of the broken bones. The walls were made out of metal, and his right arm was barricaded. All of his fingers were spreaded out forcefully. He was unable to even move his fingers in the slightest. Which, with each breath that he took, it was like he was being stabbed in his lungs. His skin burned. After being informed of his awakening, All for One entered the room, and Overhaul thinks that he's either about to die or his quirk is going to be taken away. But instead, he asked, "Are you comfortable?" "Not really." "Well, then, I shall give you something for the pain later. But Kai, I need to ask you a favor." Back at the city, the Norse gods, Horinir, Magni, Modi, Enjord, Dvithard, Vali, and Tokoyami, they were in their temporary home, sitting, waiting for the next move. Magni and Modi were reminiscing about how Enjord was defeated by the wolf bitch that they totally bodied at the USJ. Enjord did not say anything. He just stared out the window and saw something crawling towards their door. "Oh my. Everyone, Soul is outside and she's been ripped in half." They usher outside and they get her, and she explains what happened, saying that the wolf girl and the bastard that stole her father's powers had created a new form against them. Magni starts pacing back and forth out of anger. "We're wasting our time with this. I never understand why Odin had us living amongst these damn humans for these past thousands of years. This wolf bitch is picking us off one by one. Why is it that we don't go after her?" Tokoyami steps forward, saying, "Because we have to wait for Mani's next demand." "No, forget that. We are being taken down by a small pup. She's making us look weak." "Don't let your ego get in the way of our mission, Magni. Don't follow in the mistakes that your don't follow in the mistakes that your grandfather made when he underestimated Fenrir. Well, that monster has been locked away for thousands of years, and he and his bastard children are this close to bringing about Ragnarok. And if we don't do something about it, the Nine Realms are doomed." Tokoyami steps closer. His face was inches away from Magni, and says, "Do I have to remind you that Soul snuck out in the middle of the night against our wishes? If she had simply just waited, this wouldn't have happened. So how about you start using your head before you end up messing everything up?" The two stared intensely at each other with hatred, and then Modi then stood behind his brother Magni. And then Enger told them to stop this. They won't get anywhere arguing. They need to tend to Soul. Magni and Modi left the house. They talk amongst each other. Magni says, "You know, brother, there was a time when people looked to us as kings. More than kings, we were gods of the goddamn earth. But now, people barely know who we are. They think we're just myths, mythological creatures just written down in books, when we are very much real in the blood that drives within their veins." Modi says, "I do miss those days when life was easier. Yeah, me too. That's why we should reveal ourselves again, rise up, and make them bow to us. We have more power than them. We just have to wait for the right time to strike." A few hours later, Koisan, Jaigoku, along with Uraraka, were just leaving school. As the three were about to go their separate ways, Koisan asks Uraraka to wait, and she hands her a check for 6,682,150 yen, which in American currency is $50,000, my last research told me. What? What is. It's something for you and your family, Uraraka. It's donation. Please, take it. Uraraka tears up and she hugs Koi-san like a person who just saved her life. She thanks her and leaves. Why'd you give her so much money? Asked Jaigoku. She needed it more than I do. Well, that was really nice of you. Oh, and hey, how's your research on Asgard going along? I'm getting closer every day. It's just a matter of time before me and Hati find it. In Koi-san's room, she does her research on how to enter the Nine Realms, but sadly, nothing. So much for that. Hati, you have the knowledge of the past. Is there any other way to enter Asgard? I'm afraid your guess is as good as mine, child. They think for a moment, and Koi-san says, Are you thinking what I'm thinking? I think so, child. They call All for One, and he's a bit more in a calmer mood now, this time. And Koi-san asks if they can talk with Fenrir in person. All for One asks why, and she tells him the truth, that her and Hati want to go to Asgard to find Odin and ask him how they could defeat his grandchildren and his brother. Why would you want that? Asked All for One. Because they won't stop coming after us until they get what they want, the powers of the moon. But now that Tomura has earned the powers of the sun, they're coming after him now. And I'll die before I let any one of them get near him and touch a hair on his head. All for One allows her to go. Koi-san thanks him, and they schedule a plan to go. When the time comes, Koi-san told Jaigoku and Tomura that they were going to go see Fenrir to ask him how to get to Asgard. They would want to go, and Skoll was really excited to see his father again. Soon, they arrived back at the underground vicinity, and there was Fenrir still bounded to the boulder. He sees Koi-san and another boy that he's never seen before. Who are you? Asked Fenrir. Tomura does not say anything. Instead, he calls out Skoll, and Fenrir was amazed. His son stood before him in the same glare as the sun. Hello, father. Skoll, my son. It's wonderful to see you again. It's good to see both of my children in the same place. It's great to see you again too, father. I was afraid that after we succeeded in our task of catching the sun and the moon, that we'd never see you again. Hati says, Father, I must ask, how does one get to Asgard? Why do you wish to know, child? I want to ask Odin how to remove one's immortality. Fenrir grunts and he yells, I already told you Odin's death will be because of me! Hati hides behind Koi-san in fear of her father. Tomura covers his body in fire and says, Hey, don't yell at her! Fenrir snarls and growls at him. Koi-san places a hand on Tomura, saying, Hey, it's okay, I got this. Skoll says, Father, please calm down. There is no need to be angry. He clears his mind and says, I'm sorry. I can't control myself sometimes. Anyways, child, I don't think that it is a good idea. Odin is a master manipulator, and he can make you question your own existence, cloud your judgment. Hati slowly up, Hati slowly appears from behind Koe-san and says, "Father, his grandchildren are after me and my host, and now they are after Skull and his host. He's earned those powers from the sun. I, or should I say, we, have managed to take down at least two of them. But they have Vithard on their side, and the prophecy says that he is destined to kill you when Ragnarok arrives. Which is why I must kill him before it happens. So please, Father, tell me how to get to Asgard." Fenrir thinks for a second. "There is one way to get to Asgard, but there's a chance you might have to enter the other 8 realms before Asgard. As you know, Earth is Midgard, and the only way to get to the rest of the realms, you will need the help of Garm." Skull says, "Garm? The guardian of Helheim?" "Yes. He can only be summoned on the night of November 1st at 12 a.m. If you fail or miss the timing by 1 minute, you will have to wait until next November 1st to try again." "Oh, why didn't I think of that?" said Hati. "So we have a few days to prepare the ritual then." Fenrir says, "My child, please be careful, and if push comes to shove, you do what you must." Hati turns to Koe-san and says, "Child, do you mind if me and my brother get a few minutes with our father before we leave?" Sure, Hati. Come on, Tomura, let's go." They leave, and Koe-san and Tomura chat it up for a little bit as they walk down the hallway. "Hey, Tomura, when did you start having feelings for me?" He nervously laughs and says, "Well, it's hard to tell because I knew you for so long that I feel like it's probably since the first time I saw you. You were kind and you were always there for me and so open to the world. And you were my first real friend. There's just so many reasons why, but I just been wanting to tell you for a long time. I love you, Koe-san." She smiles and says, "I love you too." The two share a kiss of passion, and Jigoku turns the corner and sees this. Jealousy fills her heart. Koe-san sees her and says, "Oh, hey, Jigoku! I've been meaning to tell you. I'm sorry. I assumed that it was you who spoke to me as I sleep, but it turns out it was Tomura." Jigoku, wanting to tell her how she really feels, says, "It's okay, you just made a simple mistake." Koe-san hugs her, and she hugs her back, but inside, Jigoku is beating herself up for not being honest. Soon, they make it back home. Skull and Hati explain how they can summon Garm, saying that they need a freshly dead body of a wolf, and learn the incantation to summon Garm, which Skull and Hati will provide. Just a little something off script. Koe-san's not really comfortable killing someone of her own kind, but she's gonna have to do what she's gonna have to do in order to stop the gods. Fenrir said that we would have to go through the rest of the 9 realms. If I remember correctly, there's Midgard, which we're already in, Elfenheim, Jotunheim, Vanaheim, Niflheim, Muspelheim, Helheim, Svartalfheim, I forget how to pronounce it, and finally Asgard. Tomura asks, "Why does anyone else wonder why all the realms end in Heim?" No one knows the answer to that question. Shoto says, "So we have a few days before we have to summon Garm. What do we do while we wait?" Koe-san smiles and she wraps her arms around one of Tomura's arms and says, "Well, I know what we're gonna do. Come on, Tomura, we're gonna go out for a little while." She pulls him out of the front door. Jaigoku asks, "Hey, where are you guys going?" "We're gonna go out on a date. Hey, don't wait up for us." Jaigoku wanting to be a part of the fun, but they left before she could say anything. For the past few hours, Jaigoku was left alone in the quiet house. When nighttime came and the stars were out, Jaigoku had this thought that she had to do something to pass the time, and so she decided to go out for the night and do some nightly patrolling. She would wear all black, and she would also wear a black mask that was made out of cloth. She basically looked like a ninja, if you may. She would also put on makeup all around her face to make it look burned and disfigured for reasons you'll see in a minute. She would run downtown doing parkour rooftop running to stay out of sight, looking for a certain person that was on her list. The first person was a man by the name of Kenji Kana, 40-year-old male, job, office worker, family, a wife and a daughter. Reasons for being on the list: he's very abusive, and he's an alcoholic. Goal: he needs to learn the lesson of family value. Jaigoku looks down from above, her target in sight, walking down the street with a suitcase in one hand, and in the other hand, a bottle of Yamazaki. Kenji Kana then walks into an alleyway, trying to take a shortcut home. It was dark and it had garbage against the walls, and wrapping paper and newspaper all over the ground. Jaigoku had him right where she wanted him, and then landing right behind her target, calling his name. "Kenji Kana? Who's asking? I've had my eyes on you for a while now. You, Kenji Kana, have been abusive with your family and alcohol, and in doing so, you let all your frustration out on your wife Mai and your daughter Calliope." Kenji says, "Listen to me, you stalking freak. What goes on in my house is none of your damn business, so if you know what's good for you, you're gonna stop stalking me and my family, otherwise," he pulls out a gun, "you're gonna meet the end of my gun." He aims it in the darkness, unknowing of where his target is. He hears a feminine laugh. "That's funny. I've read your records, and you don't have a license to carry that firearm around. So, you have an illegal weapon that you're carrying around and endangering the lives of the people in the streets and at home. Are you really that scared of me that you need a gun, Kenji? I don't have a gun, 'cause I don't need one to kill a man. You're pathetic." Suddenly, Kenji feels a sharp stinging pain in his hand where he had his gun, and he drops it. He screams in agony. He feels another sharp stinging pain in other parts of his limbs, in his arms, in both of his legs. He looks and he sees ice has pierced him. The only thing that kept him standing was the ice that pierced him from the walls. He feels something just barely poking him on the back center of his spine. Suddenly, he sees a figure walking in the dark in front of him. If I were you, I wouldn't move, because if that ice dagger pricks you in the back, you'll be paralyzed from the neck down. That way, you won't be able to use your hands to hurt your wife or daughter anymore. But I want to give you a chance to change. I want you to put down the bottle and never hurt your wife and daughter again." and I won't come back for you. And just so you know, your actions can lead to one another, and soon your daughter will be caught in the crossfire, and something like this might happen to her. She then reaches towards her face coverage and she removes it from her face, revealing her horrible facial burns. Mr. Kana's heart started racing very fast, for fear started to envelop him. She covers her face back up and says, "Now, when you wake up in the hospital, I want you to tell your wife and child that you promise to be better, that you'll never touch another bottle of alcohol. May the spirit of purity take my soul. Do you understand?" He nods his head, just desperately wanting all of this to be over. Good. She then walks behind him. "Now fall asleep!" She punches him, knocking him out, and she takes out his phone and she calls an ambulance for him. She moves on and approaches a biker gang. All of them were drinking heavily, laughing, but not the good kind of laughter, the kind of laughter that people would laugh at when putting innocents in danger or causing them great harm. One of the biker gang says, "Hey fellas, look who we got here." They all look, and they see this stranger that looks like a ninja just approaching them. Jigoku says, or the spirit of purity, if I may verify, says, "Which one of you is named Yamato Uryu?" A man with large greasy hair steps forward saying, "Who's asking? I'd like to have a word with you. In private." "No, I don't think so." "Fine. I wanted to talk to you about your child, Cacao." "How do you know that name?" "You understand that by staying in this gang, you proceed to put her in danger. With the turf war, don't you think that it's bad enough that she lost her mother thanks to a shootout at your house that was meant for you, but she died in your place? I think it's best if you leave these guys and go on the right path of life and give Cacao the life she deserves. Because if not, she's going to go through the rest of her life without a father as well. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Yamato did not take kindly to those words, and he looks at his squad and signals them to attack. 3 of them charges in, but yet they found themselves on the ground bleeding because Jigoku had pulled out ice katanas and slashed their chests wide open. The rest of them stared in bewilderment, and they all charged in, seeking retribution for their fallen comrades, only for the same thing to happen to them. Only this time, Jigoku performs acrobatics, doing flips and twists and kicks to avoid their attacks and taking them down at the same time. She fatally wounds them, but they will need medics if they wish to stay alive. But right now, it is only her and her target standing. She approaches him with blood staining her clothes and blood running down the tip of her ice blades. Do you see what violence brings to someone you're supposed to keep it from? I need you to take this moment as a lesson to keep your child out of this kind of stuff. She turns around and she walks off. But as she does, Yamato uses his metallokinesis to try and crush her, but she uses her ice quirk to form an ice barrier around her as a shield. Her sight was then darkened when all the metal around her started pressing against her, like the only thing she could make out was small glimpses of light. But then suddenly, She heard Yamato's voice saying something. Wait, who the hell are you? What is that? Suddenly, a sound of a flamethrower can be heard, and Yamato starts screaming in agony. When he stopped, suddenly Jigoku heard a knock on her ice barrier. Hey, you in there? She slowly lowers her ice shield and sees the boy that she met before, with the black hair and the burnt scars. It, it's you. Yeah, it's me. Come on, we need to leave before the police show up. Wait, where did Yamato go? You don't have to worry about him. There's nothing left of him. There's nothing left of him anyway. They leave, and they arrive at the bar where they first met, at her uncle Korigiri's bar. She greets him and asks for a cup of tea. The two then sat down, and Jigoku wipes all the makeup off of her face. Hey, I gotta ask, when we first met, you called me sis. Why is that? Because you're one of my sisters. Haven't you seen the other siblings we had? No, I haven't gotten a chance to see them yet. I don't even know their names or where they are. Well, I do. Their names are Fuyumi and Natsuo. They live together, and they had to find jobs in order to support each other. We could visit them some other time later on. I would like to... Well, yeah, I would like to meet them and get to know them better. But right now, I want to know more about you. Like, do you have anything you want to ask me? Actually, I do. I have a question that's been on my mind for a long time. Where's Endeavor? Jigoku is taken aback by that question, but suddenly she answers honestly. He's dead. He's dead? Mm-hmm. How did he die? Of old age. Dabi looks into her eyes with confusion. Really? He died of old age? I mean, if he was still living today, he'd be 45 right now. But you're saying that he died of old age? Whether you believe it or not, it's the truth. And I'm not going to tell you how he died of old age because... reasons. She didn't want to tell him anything about Koi-san. Just a moment ago, the room was calm. But now, the room is slowly being filled with lust and anger. The two stare intensely at each other. Dabi says, "What happened to him?" Jigoku does not say anything, and suddenly, Dabi sheds a tear. His face turns to sadness. Why are you crying? He wipes away his tears. I'm not crying. He weeps harder, and he gets out of his chair and he runs out the front door. Jigoku takes a sigh of relief. Whew, thanks, Koi-san. Things were really starting to intense there. From a table just a few feet away, Koi-san and Tomura were sitting and hiding in the shadows. Hey, it's no problem, Jigoku. I gotta say, I can tell your brother is pretty bulked up. I know. I can tell he's got a lot of issues. Tomura says, yeah, and by the way, Jigoku, why is it that you're dressed up like that? What's with the getup? It's a long story. I'll tell you about it in a minute. And so, they would chat for a while. Jigoku would ask what they were doing for the past few hours, and Koi-san would just say that they were just on a date, and Tomura showed off more of his skills with his fire powers. Jigoku would explain the getup, saying that she created this sort of persona called the Spirit of Purity, where she would stalk people, mostly alcoholics or drug abusers or people who abuse their families, and she would, teach them a lesson, as I displayed earlier. Koi-san says, wow, so you've been doing your own thing. Good work. It's the next day, and people were still talking about the unscheduled solar eclipse that had happened the other day. And it was at lunch. Jigoku and Koe-san sat at the table, but then they were accompanied by Uraraka, who came over to talk with them. Hey, Koe-san. Hey, Jigoku. How are you doing? We're doing fine, Ochako. We got a new mission happening in a few days, if you know what I mean. She whispers, Oh, are you guys have someone else you're going after? Who is it? We're going after Odin, said Jigoku. Really? As in Mount Olympus? That's Zeus, Uraraka. We're talking about the Allfather, the Norse mythology, the master of manipulation. Oh, right. Hey, why are you guys going after him? We need to ask him how to defeat the gods that are after me. Oh, well, good luck. I do hope everything works out well for you two. Oh, and hey, Koe-san, Jigoku, I wanted to give you something for helping me and my family out. It may not be worth as equal value as what you have given me, but I made this with a lot of love and care. She hands both of them hand knitted bracelets with their names lettered out on beads. Koe-san's was black and white, and Jigoku's was black and yellow like her jumpsuit. Thank you, Uraraka. These look amazing. You made these? I did. I wanted to show my appreciation, and this was the best I could come up with. Jigoku was a bit confused. What am I supposed to do with this? Koe-san explains. Well, Jigoku, you put it on and you never take it off. It's supposed to represent friends forever. More time passes. Koe-san and Tomura have been practicing the way of the solar eclipse technique, and the day of the ritual had come. It was October 31st. The first snow had fallen, and it was dark. 11:59 p.m. They had everything set up for the ritual to begin. They had a gray wolf for the sacrifice, and the pentagram with the gray wolf in the center, written in the dirt. Okay, guys, are you ready? Asked Koe-san. We're ready. She exhales and pulls out a knife and approaches the sacrifice, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Guys, I can't do it. He's scared and he's looking at me, begging. Tomura says, Here, let me do it. Just go over there and turn around and cover your ears. I'll make this as painless as possible, okay? She gave him the knife and she walks a few feet away, and even with her ears covered, she was still able to hear the wolves whimpering and weeping. It only took Tomura a few stabs before it actually died, and then Jigoku tapped Koe-san on her shoulder, letting her know that the job has been done. Even with the sight of all the blood, it was still too much for her, but she had to keep her head on. They only get one shot at this. If they miss this by even 1 minute, they're gonna have to wait till next year. And by the looks of things, they may not even have next week. Alright, Skull, Hati, howl to the moon. They then appear, Skull and Hati, standing 100 feet tall, and the two wolves then howl to the skies, but Koe-san couldn't help but join in because, well, it's in her nature. Suddenly, the moon's gray shine then turns to a blood red, and all of the snow that fell from the sky started swirling around the dead gray wolf. A bright red light ensues, and the corpse started floating in the air. And an explosion of snow scatters everywhere. When everyone's sight returned to them, they see the bloodied gray wolf alive once again, snarling and growling at them, and it spoke. I am Garm. Koe-san says, Guys, let me talk to him first. Garm, we seek your help. We want to enter the rest of the realms to make our way to Asgard, but in order for our journey to commence, we request that you take us to Helheim. Garm looks at her. The back of his hair was standing up straight. No. Why? If I am to take you to Helheim, your small, weak bodies will freeze within a matter of entering Helheim. Skull spoke up, saying, How about a wager? Garm thinks. I'm listening. A fight. The last person standing wins. If I win, you take us to Helheim. And if I win? If you win, you get my body. And that includes the power of the sun and Tomura here. Wait, what? Garm thinks for a second and says, Deal, but on one condition. Your size must meet my size. Because I am at a disadvantage. If I were at my body, I'd win instantly. So you have to match the size of the body that was provided to me. Skull says, Fine. I will fight you smaller, reducing his size down to a normal wolf size. 1 round, and that's it. Let's begin. Garm gets in a fighting position. Hati and Koe-san says, Wait, Skull, you're gonna fight Garm? What makes you think you could win? I mean, he's Garm. He's more ruthless than Father is. Don't worry, my dear sister. I got this. The two stared at each other, and Garm charges in at Skull, and their battle begins. Their fight grows intensely every second that passes, and by the end, Skull is barely victorious when Garm falls just a second before he could. Hati comforts her brother, telling him that he has won, and great job. Garm is reluctant, but he agrees to the deal and says, A deal is a deal. You have won. See you all in hell. He says that as his eyes glow red, all 5 of them were shrouded in the remaining blood of the Grey Wolf, and a bright light ensues, and they were all teleported to Helheim. They were immediately met with the cold air. They all had to cross their arms, well, except for Hati and Skull, because they don't have arms. The Phantom Menaces had to cross their arms in front of them. Whew, it is cold out here. From behind them, they hear a voice. I told you. They turn around and they see a wolf whose chest was covered in what looked like blood. He stood at the same height as a skyscraper. Koe-san says, Hole. Jai-Goku says, Lee. Tomura says, crap. Skull. Hati. Your Auntie Hell herself would like to speak with you in person. Skull and Hati said in a surprised tone, Auntie Hell? She's alive? Garm takes them to her fortress. It almost resembles a frozen castle. They enter the castle, and soon they are confronted by Hell herself. She was just as the stories described her. 1/2 of her body was beautiful, with long black flowing hair and alive, while the other side was a decaying corpse. 1/2 of her face was fading and basically falling apart, dead. Her hair was white as the snow that fell from the sky in Helheim. Garm said, My mistress, I have brought them. She spoke in an ominous voice that almost sounded echoey. Thank you, Garm. She then stood up from her throne and slowly walked towards the two giant wolves and said, Skull and Hati, bringers of night and day, it is nice to finally meet you, my niece and nephew. She then pats them on their giant noses. Hati and Skull were at a loss for words, or what to even do at this point. Their auntie kind of scared them, but Hati then breaks the silence, saying, It's good to meet you too, Auntie Hel. You wanted to speak with us? Yes. First things first. I want to help you and your comrades. I will provide a magical barrier to keep you all warm. With a wave of her hand, the phantom menaces were shrouded in a golden aura light that kept them warm. Koisan says, Whew, that's so much better. Thank you. Your Highness? There's no need to be formal. Just call me Hel. Now, for you two, I need to inform you of something. This path that you seek for Odin is very dangerous, and it would be in your best interest to turn back now. But, knowing your father, you both have his blood within you, and you will follow through on your machinations. But there is something that you need to know. If you continue down this path, you too are bringing about Ragnarok, which will mean the end of the worlds. Not just the Nine Realms, but the place that you call home, Hati. Skull says, Good. That's what our father would want. Everything that the gods have created deserves to be destroyed. Hel says, Funny. Your sister has something she would like to tell you about that. Isn't that right, Hati? Skull looks at his sister. Hati says, Skull, we shouldn't bring about the wrath of Ragnarok. Skull says, Please tell me the words that fall from your mouth is not the truth. They are the truth. You wish to defy our father's wishes? Did you forget what they put us through? Did you forget what Odin did to us even as pups? If you do not wish to bring about the end of Ragnarok, then why did we come all the way out here? We came out here so that Odin could tell us how to defeat his grandchildren without consequences, bringing destructions to the Earth, Skull. Our lives isn't about what our father wants. He imprisoned us too. Our lives were taken from us from a man who feared the future, a destiny that he could not control. But ever since, I was freed from chasing the moon, and I lived on Earth with this child. I've been living again. I actually felt like my life mattered again. I love feeling freedom. I love the fact that I can see different things every day. She turns to Koisan. I love Koisan. This world is beautiful. And it has new habitats that don't deserve to be destroyed. They actually deserve to have their chance to live. Just like us. Skull, I want to keep living freely. When we are able to free our father from the shackles that bound him in the prison that he is in, let's live our lives the way we want to. Let me show you the world. Skull looks to his sister like he doesn't know who she is anymore, and says, Sister, if father heard those words, he would be disappointed in you. We're going to find Odin and learn what we came to learn, but after this, I'm going to need some distance from you. Hati looks to the ground, out of sadness, and Hel speaks up, saying, Now, Skull, you don't mean what you say. You're only surprised of the change your sister has had. And she is right. There is beauty in Midgard. And Your lives aren't about what your father wants. Things in Midgard are beautiful now that the gods don't rule over the 9 realms. You must give the world a chance before you make the decision that will change it forever, or maybe even possibly destroy it. As for your father, your lives are your own, not about what your father wants. She lifts their heads up from underneath their chins, suggesting that they look at her. I know you two will make the right choice, but there is something you need to know. She looks to Koe-san and Tomura and informs them that while in the 8 realms, their powers will be taken away from them because of the magical barrier that shrouds the 8 realms. Koe-san actually looks down at her shadow and she realizes, yeah, she's right. She actually has her own shadow, and Tomura doesn't feel the powers of the sun flowing throughout his body, which means Scotty and which means which means Hati and Skull also have their bodies back. Koe-san says, "Wow, that's crazy. So, how am I supposed to use my powers?" You can't. While in the realms, you will not have access to your powers. Because in Midgard, there is no magical barriers that severs the realms from each other. Which is why you need to be careful when walking through hell. There are creatures that are hostile and will try to kill you. You must rely on your physical skills and fight through the army. Or perhaps Jigoku can protect you. She still has access to her powers. Shoto then conjures ice and fire in both hands. Yep, I do still have my power. Hell says, the time for your journey begins now. When you reach the end of this realm, look for the mysterious door, and it will take you to the next realm. She then kisses Skull and Hati on their noses and says, good luck. They start running once they are outside. They haven't ran into anything for a while. But soon, they come across a few skeletons, are the souls of the dishonored. Beings that tried to get in their way, but that didn't stop Koe-san, Jigoku, or Tomura, or Skull and Hati. Luckily, they still had their large bodies, so they were able to take on a majority of them. It only took 2 hits for the skeletal people to fall. It could have been tougher if Jigoku or Skull and Hati, if they weren't there. They run for what feels like a few hours, and they find themselves really, really tired after running and fighting. So they decide to take shelter in a cave. Skull and Hati agreed to cover the entryway with their giant bodies. As they sit, they try to rest next to a fire. But Koe-san asks Tomura if he could recite to her another poem. Something about the kiss of a serpent. Actually, it's surprising that you actually mentioned that, because I do have a poetry, and it inspired me to make poem as well. Come here. I'll recite one to you. Hold you close. Indulge yourself now in darkness caress troubled souls of mine, reluctant to the flux of time. One can't find love where there is none. The essence of betrayful vanity of man, so ruthless, but yet divine. Sleepless mine of cruel mankind, the serpent's kiss, the heart of mine. I have once sailed the empty meadows, touching the holiness of dreams that made me feel the shivers. One can't find love where there is none. The beginning of a garish self-isolation, so splendid, but yet shallow, rooted in the everlasting wallow. Magic in the world will start with me. Koe-san snuggles him tightly as she falls asleep. Jigoku sat in the corner, thinking of the words of the poetry. One can't find love where there is none. She starts reflecting on her feelings towards Koisan. Skull and Hati, along with Tomura, had fallen soundly asleep. Jigoku looked at Koisan, wanting to be next to her. She then walked towards the two and laid next to Koisan, feeling great comfort as she falls asleep. When Koisan woke up, she is still cuddling Tomura, but she notices another arm is around her stomach area. She looks and she sees Jigoku cuddling her. She wakes them up, and Koisan, not wanting to make things awkward, doesn't mention what just happened. They proceed to run to the gate that takes them to the next realm. They get closer to the gate. It was huge. It looked like it was big enough for Skull and Hati to fit through. You guys, this must be it. So, are we just supposed to open it? Or Koisan then touches both of the doors with her hands, and the door bursts open with a light engulfing all of them. And when the light dissipated, the door then shuts with no one standing in front of it. Soon, Koisan opens her eyes and she finds herself flying through what appears to be this sort of tunnel that glows this light of blue, and these clear windows on both sides of this tunnel that shows the tree of the realms and outer space itself. Koisan is taken in amazement of what she is seeing. Wow, you guys, do you see this? They all look, and they all see it, and they are very much amazed. Soon, they reach the end of the tunnel, and they find themselves in Jotunheim, in front of what appears to be some sort of lake with snow that surrounds them. Where are we? Asks Jigoku. Skull says, well, by the looks of things, it looks like we are in Jotunheim, the land of the trolls and frost giants. Be careful. This land is just as dangerous as Helheim, except the creatures here aren't made of bones and won't break easily. They walk around for a while. Koisan and Tomura had forged their own weapons made out of wood, while Jigoku simply stuck with her own fire and ice abilities. After walking around for a while, they come across what appears to be woodland creatures. They saw what appeared to be elks who had surprisingly large and sharp horns on the top of their heads. They had this sort of veiny looking patterns around their bodies that gave off this sort of glowing blue substance. And they had 4 eyes with 2 eyes on each side of their heads. Koisan says, hey guys, I don't know about you, but I can eat. She's referring to the elk that they just saw. Koisan slowly approaches it, and the 4-legged creature was eating near a cliff end. Koisan, ready to strike the beast, then jumps out from her hiding spot and hurls her spear at this very large elk, and it pierces its heart, killing it instantly. She then runs over to her prize, basking in her glory, when suddenly, Hati hears something. She yelled, Koisan, get out of the way! When suddenly, she and the elk was grabbed by a giant blue hand. They ushered to the cliff end, and they see a frost giant that stood just about the same height as Skull and Hati. It roars to the skies, with Koisan screaming for help, and without even thinking, all 4 of them just leaped out at this giant creature, just digging, with Skull and Hati digging their teeth into it, and Jigoku unleashing hellfire and ice on him, while Tomura stabs at its at its eyes. This creature screams in agony and it drops Koe-san and the elk. She quickly gets up and, wanting to help her teammates, she looks around for something to fight with. But then she looks over and she sees that the elk that she had killed had very large and sharp horns, and this giant frost giant just stomping around. She then grabbed the elk, and then she dropped it in the path of this frost giant, and it steps on it with the horns piercing through its foot as it bleeds rapidly. It falls to the ground, and the rest of the team go to town on him, stabbing him to death with. But Skull and Hati were the ones who delivered the finishing blow as they proceed to rip its throat out. It's quiet for a moment, but then suddenly they hear heavy footsteps heading towards them. Skull tells them to hide, and a bunch of other frost giants appear. Tomura whispers, They probably heard their ally screaming for help. He was calling for backup. The frost giants investigate their fallen kind, and they take its body to bury it. They leave, and the group eats the elk that Koe-san had killed. After they refilled, they walked their way to the end of Jotunheim, and they made it there within a short amount of time, but something about it felt a little too easy. The exit was just right there in the open, like this huge space where there were no trees, not even a speck of plant life surrounding it. This almost looks like some sort of battle arena. This must be a trap, or something. Yeah, we need to be smart about this. Slowly, they start to walk towards the exit, their weapons drawn in case of an ambush. As they are halfway there, suddenly the ground starts shaking, and a four-legged frost beast charges towards them with ramming speed. The frost beast stood on four legs. It had horns that grew from the bottom of its jaw that curved just around its jaw that pointed just in front of it as a sort of defense mechanism. Its skin was that like a sort of grayish blue, and it almost resembled somewhat of a rhinoceros. Its eyes were yellow, and it looked extremely determined. Koe-san asks Skull and Hati, how do they kill this one? Hang on, said Skull. Quickly, everyone scatter! They run in opposite directions of each other. First, it chases after Jigoku. She uses her ice ability to try and slow it down, but with its brute strength, it bursted through her ice attacks. She tries using fire, but it didn't really do much. After a moment of running, Skull said, Jigoku, try conjuring ice underneath its stomach. She tries this, but it doesn't seem like there was any results. That didn't work. Koe-san would see that she is getting tired, and she runs over, and she provokes this frost beast to chase after her instead. It does, and she starts running away from it. She then uses her skill in acrobatics as she does a huge backflip, and she lands on the back of this frost giant. It tries to shake her off like a person riding a mechanical bull. It jumps around and it kicks and it just flails its body around. But Koe-san actually looks like she was having fun while doing it. She does a joyful woohoo! And then she tells everyone to quickly get the gate open. I'll keep this distracted for as long as I can. They all run to the door, and they try to open it, but they find it impossible. They pull they all pull at the same time, but only manage to get the door to crack open just a little bit. Hati says, "It's too heavy. We might need everyone to work together to open it." Koe-san says, "Well, that means we gotta take care of this guy first." The frost beast then lays on its side and it starts dragging its back across the ground. But Koe-san moves out of the way and onto its stomach area, and she sees that its stomach was very soft and pierceable, unlike the rest of its body where it was hard and extremely durable. She then gets off of it and then informs everyone of its weak spot. While it was distracted trying to get back onto its feet, they all charged in and repeatedly stab at its stomach over and over again, but it was only doing little damage. Koe-san thought that this thing's habitat is icy, so maybe if they get it warm, they could do more damage quickly. And so she asked Jigoku to hit its stomach with flames. She does this, and the beast screams loudly, probably calling for help just like the frost giant did earlier. So, if they're going to finish this thing, they need to do it now. They then plunge their weapons inside of this creature's stomach, and then it falls, dead. They all stop, take a deep breath, and Koe-san says, "Y'all know what? If we could take down a frost giant, and these frost beasts, we can definitely take the whole world if we wanted to. Now come on, let's get that door open. I can hear more of them coming this way." They all try again, and this time they all pull. But then again, the door is only barely budging. Tomura says, "Damn it, why isn't it working? Why won't the door open?" Soon, a herd of these frost beasts approach from the trees. And they have all their sights set on the phantom menaces. They then did their war cries as they charge in at their prey, and as at this moment Koe-san is ready to give up and accept this fate, but Tomura says, "Hey, that's not the Koe-san that I know. Now come on, we can do this, we just gotta think quickly." She then takes him by the hand and she gets back up. "Okay, there's gotta be a way. Quickly, we're running out of time." The beasts get closer and closer with every passing second, and Koe-san gets an idea. Maybe instead of pulling, they push. And so she does this, and the door to the next room opens. "Hey guys, we had to push, not pull." We're dumb. "Come on." They all jump in, and they fly to the next realm. Through the tunnel, as they reach the end of it, they then find themselves in Niflheim. Koe-san says, "Oh man, I thought we were done with the snowy places." Hati says, "I know this place. This is Niflheim. Don't worry, it should be the last cold realm." And just like the previous realms that they have explored before, they had a few oppositions, but they were lucky enough to get past them. They were getting close to the next gate, but they came across the Mist of Truth. They were confronted by a very tall wall of mist smoke. Hati says, "Everyone, if there's some secrets that you have in your head that you wish to get out, you better do it now, because this is the Mist of Truth, and it will reveal your deepest, darkest secrets." They all look at the wall, and then they look at each other, and Koe-san says something that she would like. And Koe-san says, "I have something I'd like to get off of my chest." She was a bit hesitant because she didn't want Tomura or Jigoku to see her differently. She goes on to tell them that she was originally a wolf, like an actual wolf. The only reason she was the way she was because of Mani, the moon goddess, who messed around with her DNA and human DNA and making her the way she is, making her half wolf, half human. Tomura says that he still cares for her, and no matter what she does, and so does Jigoku. Tomura says that he's afraid that he's going to let the team down one day, and now that he has these new powers, it really scares him that he's going to hurt Koe-san or Jigoku by accident. And the two comfort him, saying that it's okay. Even if he did do it by accident, they'd still love him. Everyone looks at Jigoku, and her face turns red, saying, well, you guys already know about my, nightly patrols as the Spirit of Purity. They accept her answer, and Hati confronts her feelings about how scared she is about Ragnarok, and Skull's saying she's frightened that Hati's time on Earth has changed her to a point where he can't even recognize her anymore. And with that, they get on the backs of their giant wolves, and they slowly make their way into the mist. And the mist starts shape-shifting into each of them individually, exposing their secrets that they have spoken about before they entered. First it was Koe-san, then Tomura, then Skull, then Hati, and then finally, it went to Jigoku. The mist shapeshifts into her, next to a hospital bed, holding Koe-san's hand and saying the exact same words she said when Koe-san was in the coma. Do you remember the first time we met? I always look back at that day when you reached out to me and you helped me up. I always looked at you like some sort of angel that fell from heaven. Like you're my guardian angel. It then mimics the same movement she did, touching Koe-san's facial cheek and saying, I love you. Everyone looks at Jigoku, who was on the back of Skull. Koe-san says, so you did say that? She says, no, I didn't. This must be some sort of trick. I never said that while you slept, I swear. Koe-san says, Jigoku, it's okay if you have feelings for me. No, I don't. It's some sort of trick, right? Skull and Hati, doesn't this thing have some sort of dishonest origin or something? They both explain that it's called the Mist of Secrets for a reason. The mist then shows that Jigoku then kissed Koe-san on her facial cheek, and they all stare at her, and Jigoku, whose face turns red, then jumps off the back of Skull, and then she runs into the mist while yelling, I didn't do that while you were sleeping, I swear! Koe-san then jumps off of the back of Hati, and she runs after Jigoku, yelling her name. Wait, Jigoku! The rest follow, and Jigoku accidentally finds the door to the next realm, and she runs through it, but she stumbles inside, and she does a few flips and turns uncontrollably. Koe-san finds the door, and she sees Jigoku has fallen through. Tomura and Skull and Hati catch up with her, and they all jump in after her. They spot her flying through the tunnel, and Koe-san yells her name. Jigoku is still swirling around out of control, and by accident she breaks through one of the window, breaking its barrier like glass. And she lands at the tree root of the world. She tries to use her ice to cushion her fall, but she was off by an inch, and she hurts her ankle in the process. But she was okay. Hati quickly grabbed Koe-san and Tomura, and she did some maneuvering, jumping off the walls, ricocheting herself, and aiming at the broken window that Jigoku had broken through, and Skull followed behind. It was a bit of a rough landing for the four, but they managed to catch up with Jigoku. They usher over to her. Koe-san says, Jigoku, are you okay? Yeah, it's just, I think I hurt my ankle. Tomura says, well, can you walk? I can, but I don't think so. She looks up and she sees Koe-san, who had a worried look on her face. She lets out a sigh and she thought that maybe she should just tell her right now, but instead she gets up and says, "Come on, guys, we gotta go." But her ankle was giving her too much pain and she nearly falls to the ground, but Tomura and Koe-san caught her. Hati says, "Everyone, look, we're at the root of the world's tree." They all look around and they see the other worlds, including the ones that they have been to. Each of them had this sort of special barrier blocking out. Each of them had this special barrier that blocked out Koe-san and Tomura's powers. And it was at this moment that the two did feel their powers come back to them because they were in the root of the world's tree and the barriers weren't blocking their powers anymore. Tomura was shrouded in fire and Koe-san felt the powers of the moon come back to her. And Hati was her shadow once more. And was at this moment Koe-san used the abyss to quickly heal Jigoku's ankle faster. Thank you, Koe-san. They all look straight up and they see Asgard. Skull says, "Hey, we could just use our powers to go straight to Asgard. Let's go." "Wait," said Koe-san. "We can't just jump straight to the finish line. We need to keep going and proceed to the next realm that we were going to make our way to the top." Skull says, "But why?" "Because I refuse to take any shortcuts from any obstacle. You either fake it till you make it, or you earn your way. With great effort. When we started this journey, we knew exactly what we were getting into. We need to follow through on this journey. You can go ahead and go if you want to, but I'm going to the next realm." The others followed her, and before they enter the next realm, Koe-san apologizes for sounding a bit rough. But they tell her that it's okay, and that she's right, and that they should just continue to the next realm and accept the hardships. But they tell her that it's okay and that she's right, and that they should see the realms through and accept the hardships and get through it as a team. And so they do. They travel through the remaining 5 realms. And they went through trials and tribulations, and one after another. The toughest realm of all was Muspelheim because of how hot it was. That and the fiery demons that inhabit it. The world was extremely hot for their human bodies to handle, and so they had to ride on the backs of the giant wolves in order to get to the exit faster. But on their way there, Skull and Hati spotted the fiery giant Searcher looking right at them with his mighty fiery sword in hand. And soon they make it to the gate and they arrive at their final destination, Asgard. As they reached the end of the tunnel, they were finally met with steady temperature. The sun shined just overhead, and the 5 finally feel like they were breathing real air. They take a minute to breathe, and the first thing that they noticed was Asgard was abandoned. Its buildings were practically collapsing, and the only thing that was inhabiting them were spiders, rodents, birds, and other insects. The team looked up as they found themselves in the root of Asgard, and just in the center, there was the sanctuary where all the Aesir gods rest and feast, I'm sorry. It looks like it was in much ruins, just as the buildings that surrounded them. Tomura says, "You're telling me this is Asgard?" Looks like an abandoned amusement park. The wolves were just as confused. Skull, "Are you sure that this is Asgard?" asked Hati. "Because the last time I saw it, Asgard was depicted as a celestial city of high towers and surrounded by the Great Wall. So, where's the wall?" "I don't know, sister." Koisan points and says, "Is that where Odin lives? That's where all the Aesir gods live. We'll have to keep our guard up, because if something this powerful managed to take down Asgard, it's probably still here." As they start to approach the building in the center, Koe-san informs everyone that she found, still functioning but not in the best condition, weapons they can use to defend themselves. Like swords, shields, anything you could think of. They armed themselves up and they make their way inside. Koe-san says, "Hati, is it possible that Ragnarok has already happened and it only went for Asgard?" "It would be impossible, child. Me and Skull have not captured the sun and the moon yet. And if that didn't happen, then that means Ragnarok has not arrived yet." Soon, they enter Odin's fortress. It was very spacious, with most of the surface being covered by dust from the ground to the elongated table that reached a couple feet away. It looked abandoned, not a soul in sight. Jigoku says, "You guys, this place has been abandoned for years. I don't think anyone's here." Koe-san says, it can't be. This is Asgard. How can no one be here?" Hati says, "Child, calm down." "I can't calm down, Hati. We came all the way here. We fought monsters, giants, and frost beasts. And in the end, the one person that we came here for might not even be here." Tomura comforts her. "Hey, just breathe. It's going to be okay. We'll find another way." "How? How are we going to stop the gods that function the earths?" Suddenly, they hear a raspy voice that was echoing off the walls. "Perhaps I can be of assistance." Everyone was spooked by the voice and they ready for battle. Hati says, "Everyone, be careful. It's Odin." They follow the voice, and soon they come across the throne room, and there sitting in the holy chair, was Odin. He wore his eye patch over his right eye, wearing his golden armor, and on his side, leaning against his throne, was his three-pointed spear, named Gungnir. But the thing that stood out most about Odin was his appearance. He looked like that of an old man who was thousands of years old. He looked like his body was decomposing. He looked like he was dying from starvation as well as dehydration. But at the same time, he looked like an elderly man who was on his deathbed. His fingers were practically bones at this point, and his eyes were sunken in, and every hair on his body was white as snow. They all approached him. They all were astonished at what they saw. Koe-san says, "Don't tell me this is Odin? Why does he look so old?" Odin then chuckles, but only a little bit before his laughter was then caught up by his choking. "I've been waiting for you, Kilala." Koe-san says, "Kilala? Who's Kilala?" "It's your name, child. Your first name. Before it was Izuki, and before it was Koe-san." "Hati, what is he talking about?" "Well, child, I think he means your name before Inko found you." "And how do you know that?" asked Koe-san. "I know everything, Kilala." He looks to Tomura and Jigoku. "I know Shota Todoroki and Tenko Shimura. All of you had traumatic childhoods. I've watched you all grow. You are all very powerful beings." Koe-san says, "Well, If you've been watching us, then you know why we're here. Yes, I do. I see my grandchildren and my brother have been giving you a hard time, and you wish to know how to strip them of their immortality, as well as defeat them without plunging the earth into chaos. I can help you, but I know that Skull and Hati would like to get a few things off their chests. Hati speaks up first. Why did you do what you did to my father? All he wanted to do was be accepted by you, and you ignorant Aesir's. Instead, you tricked him, and you tied him up. And to make matters worse, you cursed him with immortality. And for what? So that he could suffer for eternity? Explain yourself, Odin. Odin then said something that surprised both Skull and Hati. I am sorry. What? I was driven by a fear of the unknown, that I gave in to my fear, and I wanted your father out of the picture. For you see, I have had my own visions when I sleep at night. I see a future of the real prophecy, where Fenrir doesn't destroy Asgard. But by the past few years, I was too late to change anything. Ragnarok will happen because of my ignorance. And so I decided to do something different. I made you and your brother, as well as your father, immortal, so that when the time was right, you all may be united. And then I made the gods, the sun and the moon immortal, and I informed Mani and Sol to inform you in the next 5,000 years, well, 5,018 for Skull, while I willingly sent everyone to Midgard, and I thought they'd die once time has passed them by. But it would seem that Vithard has stolen my secrets and made himself, as well as the others, mortal. When I found out, I planned to go down to Midgard and deal with them myself, but I had another vision. And what happened? In your dream, I can't tell you, because if I did, it might ruin it for what it is meant to be. For only one of you comes out on top. Hati then angrily approaches Odin and says, So to you this is all some sort of game? Did you know that your grandchildren would attack my host, Koisan? She looks deep into his eyes and says, They beat the crap out of her, and you could have prevented it if you wanted to. Odin says, If I didn't know she wouldn't survive, I would have. But there's another reason. The hardships. He then holds both of his hands up to all of them. That one act brought you all together. And yes, it may have put poor Kilala in deep sleep, but in the end, Tenko was given the power of the sun, though it was meant really for Shota Todoroki. Things changed when she gave that compelling speech, and it delayed the time you were supposed to be outside to receive the powers of the sun. So I put Tenko on the mark when I disguised myself as the doctor who persuaded him to go outside. That's when I unleashed my power to a small extent so that you may sense its Skull. And that's when you found him. And with the outcome, you all have developed a stronger bond than ever. A bond that can never be broken. You've learned from one another. You've all become so strong that you actually conquered the 9 realms. And even though you had the chance to skip the realms, you chose to keep on the path to reach me. And it is because of that, Odin struggles to stand up and salute. You have earned my gratitude, as well as my respect. Skull says, but why? Why would you do something like this to your own people? And put yourself through this? Over time, I was consumed by guilt, and I chose to punish myself by sitting here in solitude, not a bite to eat or a drop of water for 5,000 years. I even changed my immortality properties by allowing me to age. As for my family, the time for the gods has come to an end, and I wanted to gift the human. I I wanted to gift the humans their own world with their own skills. Koi-san says, wait, are you saying you're the reason why humans have super abilities? Quirks? Yes, it was time for a new era to arise. Odin deeply sighs and says, if you wish to kill me, I welcome you to. I will not fight back. But before you do, Kilala, stop calling me by that name. My name is Koi-san. I am sorry. Please come forth so that I may teach you how to strip one of immortalities, as well as to take down the gods without consequences. She drops her weapon and approaches Odin. Odin then placed one palm of his hand on Koi-san, and both of their bodies were engulfed in a brilliant light. And with that, her mind was engulfed with all the knowledge, such as immortality, along with knowledge that Odin had. She backs up and nearly falls over, but Tomura catches her. Hati angrily says, I swear if you hurt her. Odin says, I didn't hurt her. I only taught her what she wanted to know, and I gave her a few more fragments of my knowledge, only enough that her brain can withstand. To my surprise, she was able to take almost all of it. Tomura says, are you okay, Koi-san? Koi-san, still processing, understanding what Odin has gifted her. It turns out, knowledge really is power. Skull then approaches Koi-san, and out of nowhere, she reaches out and she touches his snout, and a bright light engulfs his body, stripping him of his immortality. Koi-san asks, how do you feel? Skull says, did you just make me mortal? Do you feel mortal? I feel free. You should have asked for my permission before doing something like that. I'm sorry, I just had to try it. So it worked. Yes, Koi-san, it worked. Now you have the solution to take down the remaining family members that I have, once and for all. Skull and Hati, what is it that you wish to do with me? The two giant wolves think for a moment, and Hati says, Odin, you're the main source of our pain. You have brought us nothing but suffering, sorrow, and pain. You have manipulated our lives like a game of sim, and you gave us a fate that is worse than death. And with that, you deserve death. But considering the fact that you've seen the error of your ways, and you've basically suffered the wrath of immortality along with aging that you gave to yourself, You gave yourself the short end of the stick, and you let yourself be alone in this run-down fortress, and it's because of that I believe we could find it in our hearts to forgive you. But I can't let the fact go that you purposely put Koe-san, Izuki, Kilala, whatever the hell she chooses her name to be, through hell, as well as Tomura or Jigoku. Mani tried to have her killed. Her father physically and emotionally abused her, even sexually. Skull says, and you had Tomura killed so that he and I may become one and gain the powers of the sun. We understand you did it for us, but these people didn't deserve that. Which is why you're still undeserving of death. But we will let them decide. Tomura, Jigoku, Koe-san, what do you think we should do with him? Koe-san notices something as Odin was explaining himself, as he gave off multiple signs of a man who wishes for death. Koe-san approaches him and asks, do you want to die? And Odin says, yes. I have dreamed of death for a long time, but if it's not too much to ask, could you give me one last fight? Koe-san says, Skull, Hati, you don't have to do this. It's fine, child. But what about your father, Fenrir? Didn't he tell you not to kill him? Skull says, and that's why we're not going to tell him. We're going to keep this between us. And besides, he says if push comes to shove, we'll do what we must. Odin smiles, and he struggles to stand up and says, thank you, Skull and Hati, for your understanding. I shall grant you your powers, and I will remove the barriers around the remaining realms. With a wave of his hand, Odin lifts the barriers around Asgard and the rest of the 9 realms, well, the 8 realms. Midgard didn't have a barrier. And Tomura can feel the power of the sun coming back to him, and he was engulfed in fire, and he was fused with Skull again, as well as Hati with Koe-san. Odin then suggests that they take their fight outside, as everyone felt the warm touch of the sun on their skin. Odin then takes in the sight of what used to be a beautiful city. Soon they arrive at a battle arena. Odin had used his staff as a cane to get around. Koe-san says, okay, Odin, are you ready for this? I am. Okay then, come on guys. Let's give him what he asks for. They all power up, and Odin gets in a fighting stance. Koe-san is the first to charge in. Using her shadow manipulation abilities, she conjures a staff and swings it at Odin. However, Odin manages to parry her attack like a professional sword/staff fighter. Koe-san tries everything she could to get the upper hand on Odin, but it's like he could predict her moves and stopping her before she could even do them. It ended when Odin swung his staff at Koe-san and she flies back and into the arms of her comrades. Damn, he's good for an old man, said Koe-san. Tomura then activates his saber arm and he lunges at Odin, and somehow his staff was not melting from the intensity of the heat of his saber arm. But even he was bested by Odin's skills. Jigoku then shoots her shot, and there was a moment she almost got the upper hand on Odin, but Odin was just a little bit more faster. But she was bested by him in the end. Koe-san was analyzing Odin's movements, and it is because of that she wanted to go and try again. But this time, she had a plan. Koe-san readies herself and she lunges at Odin, but this time, she overwhelms his senses as she dual wields 2 staffs at the same time, and she manages to get a hit on Odin, causing him to fall to the ground with his staff. Very nice, Kilala. he gets back to his feet, and he lashes out with power, and his body has this light layer of golden light. Koisan smiles and says, "Alright, guys, let's let him really have it." They all power up, and Koisan and Tomura let their wolves take their kaiju forms, and Jigoku summons a titan-size ice and fire. They all charge in at Odin, and once they did, the Norse gods could sense that something was happening to Odin in Asgard, like a Dragon Ball character sensing high power level. The battle gets more and more intense when they had to move their fight to the ruins of Asgard. The giant wolves destroyed the buildings, chasing down Odin. "He's over there," said Skull. He blasted at him with a mouth beam, but he missed. Odin was barely able to dodge, but he retaliated by using his runic magic to manipulate the weather and causing a thunderstorm with heavy rains mixed with hail. And it is at this moment everyone was getting wet, along with being bombarded with little chunks of ice. Koisan charges in at Odin, and the two exchange blows to each other. And just as Koisan sees that Odin left himself open, and Koisan then uses her shadow abilities to telekinetically lift Odin out of the air and toss him away, opening a portal in his path, and then rewinding time on him, making him into a child. She then opens a portal and he falls out, and Koisan makes fun of him on how small and adorable he looks, even picking him up. Little Odin starts kicking and screaming, "Put me down!" She then throws him back in. Jeez, fine, Mr. Fussy Pants. She then returns him back to his age when they first found him. Odin then drives his staff into the ground, and a loud thunder ensues, and lightning strikes the ground near Koisan, and Hati quickly ushers in to get her out of the path of the strikes. Jigoku jumps in, and she uses the water around them, causing ice spikes to form, aiming at Odin. Odin would use his staff as a sort of shield as he makes it spin around really fast like a helicopter top. While Odin left himself wide open, Tomura then dashed in with his saber arm, and he would successfully land a hit on Odin, which put him in a lot of pain, which made him explode with even more power, a sort of force that blew Tomura back, with Skull catching him. They all look and see Odin floating in mid-air. His body glows brighter and brighter with this golden light, and he has a smile on his face. "I haven't had this much fun in a long time. Everyone, if it's not too much to ask, Jigoku, Tomura, would you please use that new form you used when you fought the fusion between Soul and Kai?" Koisan and Tomura look at each other, along with Skull and Hati, and says, "Okay, you asked for it." Suddenly, overhead, beyond the clouds, the sun and the moon had aligned with each other, and another solar eclipse had formed. And it is with that, Skull and Hati fused into Eclipse Devourer, and Koisan and Tomura had turned to their astral bodies. The only feature that would show on their faces were their glowing white eyes. And Jigoku creates an even bigger glacier of ice as she stood on top of it. They all charge in, with Jigoku sliding down the ice on her feet. Odin then charges in at the opposition, and as he gets closer, he says, "Thank you. Thank all of you." First, Odin was able to land a hit on Jigoku, who leaped from her ice. But then, Koisan landed a punch on him, causing him to fly backwards, destroying a couple of buildings in the process. He quickly returns to his feet and uses his magic to lunge at them. Koisan then opens a portal in his path, and he opens another portal just in front of Tomura, which made Odin fly into his fist. While he was distracted, Koisan was behind Tomura, and the two would land a barrage of punches on Odin. She then quickly tosses Odin at Tomura, and he would then catch him by his neck and then slam him into the ground, causing the concrete to break. He then throws Odin into the mountain of ice that Jigoku had conjured, snaring him in the ice. Odin is now face to face with Eclipse Devourer, and they power up their special beam attack with this ball of black and white light appearing in their mouths and getting bigger and bigger. And then Odin takes the attack point blank to the face. His whole body was engulfed in the attack. The ice had broken, and soon they found Odin in the midst of the broken ice. He was bloody and beaten and missing an arm and a leg, but still alive. Tomura and Koe-san then put the sun and moon back into their original positions, and they, along with Skull and Hati, returned to normal. Odin speaks in a raspy voice. Koe-san, come closer. I must tell you something. Koe-san kneels down with her ear closer to Odin's mouth, and he whispers something. And then she facepalms herself. Jigoku, along with Tomura, want to know what he said, and she said, Odin said I forgot to remove his immortality. They all laugh it off, and Koe-san removes his immortality, and it is at this point in time Odin starts to feel himself falling asleep. As his life slowly starts to drift away, he has one more vision, and what he saw horrified him. He looked up at Koe-san, who was comforting him, and he asked for her dominant hand. She hands him her left hand, and he grabs a hold of her hand, and he says, life is all about what we make of it. We aren't who we are by the people who make us. We are who we choose to be. There will be a time where you must choose who you will be in the future. Will you be Koe-san, Izuki, or Kilala? Suddenly, Koe-san felt a small shock to her left hand, and a strange marking appears just in her palm. She saw what looked like a funny-looking anchor with snakes swirling around it. Odin says, be careful. It can only be used one more time. Wait, what can be used one more time? Asked Koe-san. Before he could answer, his chest was impaled by his own spear. Everyone stares in bewilderment, and they look and see Horonir and Vali. Horonir's hand was extended out, indicating that he's the one who threw his staff. They all look back at Odin, who dies in the arms of Koe-san. Everyone was shocked, and Koe-san looks back and forth between Odin's body and Horonir and Vali. Koe-san doesn't understand. Why did they do that? Wasn't Odin Horonir's brother and Vali his son? Koe-san stands up. She angrily looks at them. Why would you do that? The two just stare at them blankly, as they then turned around and began to walk away. But then, Koe-san ushers at them with a shadow staff in hand. Koe-san, no! Koe-san, yes! She then swings her staff, but Horonir then grabs the end of her staff, and he punches Koe-san, causing her to fly back, knocking her unconscious. The others would have fought back, but they dedicated most of their energy into fighting Odin, so the group had no other choice but to let them leave. Koe-san was knocked out, and she wakes up in her bed. Her first thought was it all a dream? But then she looks at the palm of her hand, and she sees the strange marking that Odin implanted on her. And Hati appears, saying that it wasn't a dream, child, and Odin really did die before their eyes, at the hands of his own brother and someone he considers his son. Koe-san wasn't sure what it was, but her mind rewind back at that moment. She saw Odin's own weapon impaling his body. Deep down, she felt sad, and she didn't know why. Could it be because Odin didn't die in battle, therefore his soul could not descend to Valhalla? Could it be that out of all the things that have happened in her life, Odin is the one that suffered the most, giving himself immortality and letting himself suffer for thousands of years? But wait, how did we get back home and how long has it been? Well, while you were asleep, we found my brother Slipnir, and he took us back here. Surprisingly, he has the ability to jump realms. He's here, just outside. And surprisingly enough, it would appear that our time in traveling the realms have been quite short, because it only felt like short moments after we first left the realms. Looking outside, Koe-san sees an 8-legged horse with white hair and mane. After a while of laying in bed, Koe-san went to the living room, and there sat Tomura and Jigoku. They all asked her how she's doing, as they all took a seat at the living room table. They wanted to talk about what happened and the marking that Odin left on Koe-san. They do their research, and they discover that this symbol is the symbol of Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. It is at this moment Koe-san remembers the last words that Odin said, that it could be used one more time. Wait, did Odin bless me with the ability to call upon Mjolnir, Thor's hammer? It sure looks like it, said Tomura, but why is the real question. Chances are he probably had a vision, says Skull. I looked into his eyes, and I saw something strange. Must have been something horrifying, and I guess he wanted you to defend yourself against some sort of dangerous opposition before he died, I guess. Koe-san thinks back to the other words that Odin said. We aren't who we are by the people who make us. We are who we choose to be. Suddenly, Koe-san feels a strange feeling deep down inside of her. This feeling took her entire body. It felt like her body was telling her to feed into something. But what is it? Tomura noticed and asked Koe-san if she's okay. It's fine. I guess I'm just a little sore from all the fighting. And having to endure the 9 realms. She goes back to her room, and after enduring this feeling for what felt like hours, she finally knows this feeling. She was feeling extremely horny, if I may say. She felt horny before, but never this extreme. Hati, what's happening to me? Hati, really not wanting to explain what's going on, says, well, child, or Koe-san, you're not really a child anymore, especially after this point. It's November 1st. And for wolves, that's the time for mating season, so basically your body is in heat. Oh, crap, said Koe-san. And that's where we're going to be leaving this story. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this story. Chances are that the next video I'm going to upload, YouTube is most definitely going to eliminate my channel. So, for what it's worth, it's been an honor making the story for you guys. I might make another channel out there. Just look for Wolf What Ifs. You already know how I roll. Anyway, you all have a nice day. And if you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves #blessed. And have a nice day. Goodbye.